Hi there, it's Dave, one half of the Geeky Guys, back again. I'm here today to talk about some sci-fi, surprise, surprise, but you'd be very surprised, in fact, to know that it's not Doctor Who and Star Trek this time. I've decided today to come on and talk about a trinity of sci-fi shows. Three great shows. They've not been out that long. I'm not sure how familiar you will all be with them. You may have got a little bit of an inkling from the three intros that we had there at the start. The three shows, in the order of the intros, in fact, are Dark Matter, Killjoys, and The Expanse. And we've got a very rare thing with these shows in that they're all three great shows, all on telly at the same time, all doing really well, all very well written, all very well shot, great cast in all three of them, great ideas. One of them is even based off a set of novels, so you know you've got a lot of material from to go through and create a bit of a mythos, and it could be around for a long time. I'm not sure, as I say, how much any of you will have seen of any of these shows, but I'll give you sort of a brief kind of overview of the shows. So Dark Matter is basically about a crew who are on a ship called the Rasa. They've got a little runabout, a little shuttle called the Marauder. They go off, as you would imagine, similar as in Star Trek. They go off and do little away missions onto planets and space stations. So it's all those usual sci-fi tropes. But the thing they've got in this show is that they start off at the very beginning in stasis. And when they wake up and come out of stasis, they've all had their memories wiped. So it's a group of 6 people on a ship. They're not quite sure why they're there, who they are, what's going off. And that's quite a new thing for a start. It's very rare that you actually have a crew of people that don't know what's going on, that don't know what their life's all about, what they were doing before they went into stasis, why they're even on the ship, what the ship's called, what their mission is. They've got no idea. The show was created by a guy called Joseph Malazzi and his friend Paul Mully. They're very big on Twitter. If you go on there, you'll see a lot of tweets from them. They do talk quite a lot to the fans. They're really good like that. But it's got an all-star cast. As I said, the basic premise is they're on the ship, they wake up, they haven't got any memories, and they have to work out who they are, what their mission is, why they ended up in stasis, why they ended up on that ship, who wiped the memories and why. That's basically an intro to that show. And as he said, you've got a lot of very big names in this show. You've got Roger Cross, who you might know from Continuum. He was also in the Chronicles of Riddick movie. He was in Final Destination 2. Films you wouldn't imagine, like Look Who's Talking Now and Free Willy 3. Don't quite know why he ended up in those films, but he did. But he's also been in very similar things that we would be aware of in our arena, with parts on Stargate SG-1, Nick Fury, the Highlander TV series, The Outer Limits, Sliders, Hawkeye, a couple of episodes of X-Files, Cobra, Mantis, Relic Hunter, The Twilight Zone, 4400, a little bit in Star Trek Enterprise, 24, NCIS, Chuck, Charlie's Angels, Eureka, Orphan Black, The 100, and then he's even done little voice parts, little parts in video games like Saints Row and Bioshock, Fallout, Syndicate. So he's done a lot of stuff, and as I say, he's done shows like Continuum and X-Files, Outer Limits, Stargate, Nick Fury, that are kind of in the same kind of ballpark, so to speak. So he's a very good actor. I like him a lot. He's in this show, and he's one of the crew on the ship that's in stasis at the start. There's also, introduced a little bit later on, there's an android on the ship who's played by Zoe Palmer. She's very, very good. She kind of helps the crew when they first wake up, so I get the basics of what's happening, where they are and what's going off. She's played by Zoe Palmer, who you may also know from Lost Girl and Nikita and Real Detective. We've got Melissa O'Neill, who's also in the crew, was in Rogue. Another crew member is played by Anthony Lemke. He was in La Femme Nikita, the RoboCop series, Warehouse 13, Lost Girl, and even played a little voice part in Assassin's Creed Unity. He did a little voice role in that. Also got the young nerdy girl on the ship, who's kind of like the IT support. Is really awesome at technical stuff, and obviously at the start she doesn't know why she knows that and why she's so good at it, but she just is. She knows how to fix the ship, knows how to fly the ship, knows how to sort out all the security protocols. She's played by an actress called Jodelle Ferland. She was in the movie Silent Hill, in Seed, in Twilight Eclipse, Cabin in the Woods, and then she's been in Paranorman, TV series Dark Angel, Carrie, Smallville, Dead Like Me, did a little bit in Supernatural, Stargate SG-1 again, which is maybe where she met Roger Cross, Stargate Atlantis, Masters of Horror, and she's also been in the video game arena as well, working on the Bioshock games and doing a bit of voice work and obviously using her image a little bit in that. There's also the guy who kind of plays the Japanese like samurai master, is really good with swords and sticks and martial arts. Basically, the martial arts master on the crew, the guy you really want on your side when you need to kick a bit of ass, so to speak. He was in the 2014 RoboCop movie. He was in True Justice on TV, Nikita, Defiance, The Strain, Beauty and the Beast TV series. So he's done quite a bit. Then you've also got Mark Ben David, who plays one of the crew members as well. So as you can see, it's quite a good, decent quality cast. There's obviously a lot of money gone into the show. A lot of people that have worked in this arena before working on it, so it just shows you the quality and why it's good. So yeah, I would definitely like to recommend Dark Matter if you haven't already seen it. It's well worth a look. It's on Space Channel, it's on Sci-Fi, obviously Sci-Fi UK for fans in the UK. So yeah, that is Dark Matter pretty much. One thing I didn't mention, one thing to look out for when you're watching the show, late on into the first season there's quite a nice little role, I wouldn't say cameo, but it's a bit more than a cameo season, at least a couple of episodes. Will Wheaton, who we'd all be aware of as good old Wesley Crusher from Star Trek The Next Generation, he plays a really good role in the show, Commander Alex Rook, so look out for that one. The thing we do need to say about Dark Matter is we have just heard in the news recently that it's not being picked up for a fourth season. So I think a lot of people are quite surprised because this season's probably been the best of the three so far. They've been getting better and better. There's been a kind of really good story set up that's been bubbling away in the background. There's a new big bad set up. The crew are all going in their own little directions, got their own little missions that they're doing. And we've heard that it's cancelled, so that's not good. And hopefully they'll change their mind and they'll realise how stupid they're being to cancel a really popular show. But if you want to keep it going, if you start watching it, you think, yeah, this is a great show, it doesn't deserve to be cancelled, which is pretty much what the rest of us think, make sure you go onto Twitter and go onto Instagram and hashtag Renew Dark Matter, and hopefully the powers that be at Sci-Fi and at the Space Channel will change their mind and bring it back. So that's Dark Matter. Go and have a look. Let us know what you think. Tell us what you think's good about it. If you don't like it, equally tell us about that as well. That brings us on to the next sci-fi series in the Sci-Fi Trinity that I want to talk about, and that's a show called Killjoys. The basic premise with this show, I should say, is it's about a group of people that work for the RAC, the RAC, and they're basically like bounty hunters, not road recovery agents. But no, the RAC, still spelled RAC, but this is a very different RAC. They're bounty agents in space, bounty hunters going after criminals, basically. And that's how they get their credits, that's how they get paid for going after names that the corporations are after that are causing trouble out in the space, or as they call it, out in the quad. And they get paid credits for bringing these people in, bringing them to justice. We start off with a very small crew, similar as in Dark Matter in a way. It's a small circle, a very small crew on the ship. There's an android, which is just a voice part on this show, just the voice of the computer, which is played by Tasman McDonough, who plays Lucy. She's quite entertaining. It's worth watching the show just for her alone. But they're basically on this ship. The bounty hunters going after these criminals, and obviously things develop from there. People are added to the crew. People are taken away from the crew, as in normal sci-fi shows. And the story develops from there. There's things going off in the background, and they slowly get dragged away from doing their normal job of the RAC, of going after bounty hunters and kind of being the good guys, sorting out the big bad. So that's the basic premise of the show. I don't want to really say too much about it, otherwise it'll give too much away. Two of the big names in the show are Aaron Ashmore, who you know from The Following, and Rob Stewart, who also, strangely enough, was in Dark Matter. He's been in quite a few other sci-fi shows as well. If you see his face, you'd recognise him straight away. I think he's even been in Star Trek as well. So he's a big name. Show's created by a lady called Michelle Lovretta. She's a very talented writer and producer. If you look on the internet, you'll see she's been involved in quite a few cool shows in the past, and this is her show. Also starring Hannah John Kamen, who plays a character called Dutch, Aaron Ashmore, who we've mentioned, who plays Johnny Jacoby. Then we've got Luke McFarlane, who's kind of the tough one of the group, who plays Davin Jacoby, who's his brother. Tasman McDonough, who we mentioned, who's Lucy, who's the ship's computer. So almost doing kind of the Majel Barrett kind of role. And then you've got Tom Allison, who plays a barman, and he's working in Westerly, which is where Johnny Jacoby's from, and it's where a lot of the action takes place in the first series. You've also got the Quad, which is kind of like the different sectors of space around that. You've got Kresh, which is kind of where all the posh people live, pretty much. They've got their own little planet, or I suppose it's almost like a moon of Kresh. And then you've got a few space stations and a few little outposts and stuff that they visit during the series. You've also got Morgan Kelly, Kelly McCormack, and so yeah, I mean, you might know some of them names. As I say, Aaron Ashmore and Rob Stewart are probably the main two. But again, another show that's very well written, very well shot. It's got almost a little feel of Firefly about it. We are hearing as well in the news that this show has actually been renewed for another couple of seasons. So unlike Dark Matter, this is being carried on. They are telling the full story. It is going to develop. So at least with this show you can get on board and you know that they're still making episodes. There's still plans for the future for it. So that's all good. That's really good news. So as I say, it's worth having a look at that show. Very, very good. Good cast again. Good story. Good themes. Shot really well. Good back nods to previous sci-fi shows and tropes. So lots of things you'd recognise in there as well. And that's pretty much Killjoys. I think I don't think there's too much more I want to say about it. Otherwise, I'll give too much away. Later on in the series, you'll get a moon called Arkan, which will become very important. So look out for that when that comes into it. So yeah, that's pretty much Killjoys. I would like to move on then to the third show, the final show in the sci-fi trilogy, and that is a show called The Expanse. It's one of the most, I think somebody said recently, it's one of the most expensively made sci-fi show in history, which is unbelievable. I mean, you would think that there were other shows that have had a lot more money spent on them, but this is pretty much classed as a very expensive space opera in the industry, and people have been going on quite a lot over the last year or so about how much money and how much time's been spent on it. It spawned from novels that were written by Ty Frank and Daniel Abraham, and it's been developed for screen by a guy called James S.A. Corey, who's a really cool sci-fi writer. You see him on Twitter, he knows all the shows. He's a fan of all the cool stuff, so I mean that kind of gives you a bit of an idea of the people that are involved with it. The basic story on this show, again, I don't want to say too much because it'll give a lot away, but you've got a small group of people on a ship. The original ship at the start of the season is called the Canterbury, or as they call it, the Cant, and it's just basically a group of characters together, and they're almost like the security team. They're kind of patrolling the sector, kind of keeping order. That's pretty much what their job is at the very start on that ship, the Canterbury. It got a very interesting situation where you've actually got three factions against each other. You've got Earth, as you would imagine, and then you've got Mars, which is actually a separate civilization all on its own. If you can imagine that the first colony moves on Mars, and then so many hundred years later, or 1,000 years later, they're very, very detracted from Earth. They're their own civilization, they're their own planet. They're not having to rely on shipments from Earth anymore so much. They're growing their own stuff, making their own stuff. They've got plenty of people there helping them. They've got engineers, they've got botanists. They've got people that are experts in engineering, in water, in energy consumption, in energy creation, all sorts of things. So they're basically not relying on Earth that much, their own little civilization. They're also very warlike as well. They've got the best ships in the sector, the best technology. So a lot of the best people went there as a new exciting challenge from Earth years and years ago. So you tend to find that, like, at this point it's very highly advanced, and Earth are kind of a little bit jealous, also a little bit worried about them striking them and obviously taking over Earth, and Earth are worried about Mars striking them. Mars are worried about Earth striking them. So you've kind of got a bit of a standoff between the two worlds, the red planet and Earth, which plays in the background, and there's almost a political element between the two as well, almost like you've got in Game of Thrones, with people all vying for control, but instead of a throne as in Game of Thrones, they're all vying for control of the sector, for control of the solar system, basically. And so that's a big thing that's going on in the background. And then again, like in a lot of sci-fi shows, you've got outposts that people go to during the series. You've got moons of planets. I know certainly Venus plays a big part in the show, and Jupiter plays a big part as well. Jupiter Station. One of the big guys in the show, going through both seasons, is a guy called Chad Coleman, who plays Fred Johnson, who's the leader, the main guy, all to do with the Belters. Everything Belter wise, he's behind it. He organises it. They're like his little army, and it's all, as I say, pretty much Earth against Mars, against the Belters. I mean, pretty much to explain the show a little bit more, it's pretty much set a few hundred years in the future. Things have got very different after the humans have colonised the solar system. Mars has become pretty much an independent military power. Rising tensions between Earth and Mars and the Belters have put them all on the brink of war. You've got all this going on against the backdrop of a hardened detective, a rogue ship captain, and they come together to investigate the case of a missing woman. That pretty much is basically what happens in the first season. That's what it's all about. The investigation leads them on a race across the solar system, and there's a bit of a big conspiracy going on in the background, and you get little bits of that slowly drip feed into the story. So there's a lot of stuff going on, to be fair. I mean, to tell you about some of the main people in the show, you've got Stephen Straits, who plays a character called James Holden. He kind of plays the good guy, almost like the Kit Harington, Jon Snow kind of character. He's kind of the good guy, tries to get everybody on his side, tries to bring out the strengths in everybody to help him, to look out for him. You've also got a lady called Shora Agadashlu, who plays Christian Abasaralara, and she's basically like the United Nations head on Earth, pretty much, that tries to make sure that Earth doesn't get blasted into smithereens and make sure that the people of Earth are safe. Look out for her as well. Another member of the main crew is a lady called Dominic Tipper, plays a character called Naomi Nagata. You've got the detective that we mentioned a while back there, the rogue detective, who kind of helps James Holden out with the investigation of this missing lady in season 1. He's played by Thomas Jane. There's an amazing Mars pilot who comes in and pilots the Mars ship. He's played by Cass Anvar. He's a guy called Alex Kamal, so he's quite a cool character, and quite quick-witted, quick-talking, very, very talented as a pilot. He's well worth looking at. Then you've got Wes Chatham, who plays Amos Burton. He's like the strength, he's like the brawn of the crew. He's a one you want on your side in a bar fight, definitely, as the crew find on many occasions going through this series. We've also got Florence Fave, who plays Juliet Andromeda, and she's basically the missing girl that we mentioned at the start. There's quite a few other good people in it as well. There's Brian George. He's currently in the Orville. He's in the show as well. And you've also got Jared Harris, who's been in quite a lot of sci-fi things. He plays a character called Anderson Dawes. He's one of the old school like Mars captains who comes on and ends up in his later years helping out the Belters and being almost like the antithesis of Fred Johnson a little bit. He's kind of like over the Belters, controlling them, but part of a little bit of a splinter group. So I think that pretty much explains The Expanse a little bit. I've probably not explained it amazingly well, but it is a very highly faceted show, to be fair. There's a lot of things going on, a lot of different characters, a lot of factions against each other. The only thing I can really say is watch it. I think you'll enjoy it. Watch Killjoys, watch Dark Matter, make sure you get on and sign the petition for Dark Matter Season 4, because at the moment that's not happening. If you watch the show, you'll just realise how ridiculous that is. It's just a great concept at the start, Very good first season, better second season, even better, probably best season, season 3, and yet now's the time they decide to stop it. Great. So yeah, go and watch all 3 shows. I think you'll agree with me that it's a really good Trinity trio, even of sci-fi shows that are all very good. All got a lot going for them. All got brilliant casts. All very different stories. They're not particularly similar at all. They've all got their own thing going on. I think you'll enjoy them. If you're a sci-fi fan, you'll enjoy them. And if you're a fan of drama, you'll like them. They're just very dramatic, good shows. They're not like a lot of shows and films these days where it's all relying on the action, it's all relying on the explosions, the fighting. There is some really good effects in The Expanse, and as we say, they've spent a hell of a lot of money on that. One of the most expensive sci-fi shows of all time. So certainly when there are effects in the show, they're very good, very believable, and very filmic. You could imagine watching episodes of The Expanse up on the cinema screen as a full feature and it wouldn't look out of place. So yeah, it's got that, but it's also got very good story and very good characters. A lot of themes, a lot of things going back to previous shows that you'd recognise. All these shows take stuff from Star Trek, they take stuff from Firefly, they take stuff from even old stuff like Lex and Farscape. So it's definitely worth giving them all a watch, and come back to us, let us know what you think of them, sign the petition for Dark Matter, and start the conversation, because I don't think people are talking about these shows enough. There's a lot of people that are still saying, what's Dark Matter, what's Killjoys, what's The Expanse? And it's like, if you're a sci-fi fan, really, you should have heard of them. And if by some unfortunate reason you're too busy with your life or whatever and you've not heard of it, just get in and watch it, and you'll enjoy it. All 3 shows, just watch them all, just binge watch them, stick them on. Most of them are on Netflix anyway, so there's no excuse. Buy the DVDs, stream them if you want to be a bit naughty. But it's all out there, so have a look. Let us know what you think, myself and Mr. P, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks, bye.